Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. Feel free to drop your name, your company, where you're from, into the chat. We'll get started in just a few moments.
Just looking over the attendee list, and it's like, oh, I know that person. What a great, oh, I'm so happy to see.
Hi, Jennifer, welcome. Seeing a lot of familiar names. Hello to everyone. Seeing a lot of new names, which is awesome.
Thank you, Amy.
Participating. Happy Thursday, everybody. Thanks for being here.
1 week till Christmas.
Mhm. Countdown is on.
2 weeks to the end of the year or the start of the new year.
It's crazy how much time has gone by.
Goes by so fast, and it really is true. The older you get, the faster it goes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Each individual day feels long. Sometimes they feel a little too short, but sometimes they feel really long. But then I look back at the year and I'm like, woof, that went fast.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, my name is Alex Albritton. I am the coordinator of business support here at TCIA. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Business Solutions webinar, Empowering Women in Tree Care, Stories of Strength and Success. Today's discussion will be led by Rebecca Johnson, who is a TCIA auditor, and Amy Burkett, who is a TCIA board of director. They will get to share some of their experiences and insights in a panels type discussion today. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. Our discussion should last around 30 to 45 minutes with additional Q&A at the end. All attendees will be muted except for our speakers. Please submit questions anytime via the chat. The chat goes directly to us, the hosts and panelists, who will either respond in that moment or bring the questions to the speakers after the discussion. At the end, we'll share a brief survey. Your feedback will help us improve future webinars. There's also a new question on the survey for this webinar in particular. I'm asking you to share any experiences you may have had that relate to the discussion from today. Any good, bad, we'd love to hear it. And as always, a recording will be posted on the TCIA Business Solutions page within the next few days for anyone who may have missed it. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Rebecca and Amy, I'd love it if you could give a brief introduction to who you are and what you do, and then we'll start with our questions.
Rebecca, you're muted.
My dog's being whiny. Amy, I'll let you go first, alphabetical order.
Okay, perfect. Hi, I'm Amy Burkett. Thank you so much for being here today. I am an owner operator of a small tree care company out of Boerne, Texas called Burkett Arbor Care. And I also sit on the board of directors for TCIA.
And I'm Rebecca Johnson, and I'm a consulting arborist out of Austin, Texas. My focus is outreach and education. And as Alex mentioned, I am a TCIA auditor, CTSP qualified trainer, and I also sit on the ISA board of directors.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for those introductions. I'm going to go ahead and kick right off with the questions. So I do want to hear a little bit about your paths in this industry. Both of you have taken very different routes. Rebecca, you've worn many, many hats, from being an arborist to now auditing with TCIA. Amy, you've transitioned from a corporate career to owning a tree care business. What motivated you each to pursue this work? And what has surprised you most along the way?
Go first.
Sure. So, I fell in love with trees as a child, climbing trees, playing. I grew up rural, and then I joined FFA and was doing nursery landscape. And realized I really loved trees, and so I took a degree in forestry, um, and I couldn't find a job, so that didn't work out. But my spouse got into arboriculture because we met in forestry school. And at first, it was just I would do whatever I could. I'd say yes to almost anything, especially once I was trying to transition back into the industry. Um, I would just say yes. Somebody say, "Do you want to do this?" I'd say, "Sure." Um, I don't necessarily recommend that because the lesson I learned from that is yes, say yes to the things that match your values. I hope y'all can't hear that dog behind me. Say yes to the things that match your values. Determine what your values are and say yes to those things. And if it doesn't match your values, don't say yes. And so my values are I really want to bring people into the tree care industry and have them be safe and competent. And I especially want to bring women into the tree care industry. So that's how I did CTSP and how I became an auditor, is that safety focus and wanting to have a competent, safe workforce.
So my story is a little bit different. I had a finance and marketing background. I worked at USAA, which is a military insurance company, and I had various roles from selling life insurance to my last role as a compliance analyst, where I was over life and health products from an enterprise initiative and made sure that we were complying with the feds. My husband started recruiting me. He started his company in 2006. He grew up under ISA and started recruiting in 2013 to come over. And I really wasn't keen on the idea of a husband and wife. So I said no. And we kind of gave what I call, I've written an article about it, but a list of what I call mission impossible, where he had to, pay off equipment, do X, Y, and Z. And I didn't think he could accomplish that list, quite frankly. And a year later, he like didn't say a word, came to me, and everything on the list he had highlighted off. And so there I transitioned, went into work, and USA was wonderful to me. They gave me a 90-day leave of absence, offered me a bigger and allowed me to attend team meetings. So I didn't feel like it was such a drastic move. And so I was literally taking receipts out of trucks and cup holders and getting my husband the support that he needed to actually have a successful business. So he gets all the credit to why I'm here today. But as far as motivators, just having the opportunity to create something tangible, like protecting people and property and the urban forest while creating, meaningful careers and a strong culture is very important to me in our everyday lives. I feel like on a just industry level, I'm very focused on just safety. Science is super important. I don't think we would be the company we are without have really being born and raised under a science, influence and focus. And I'm really passionate about just making sure the future entails meaningful careers in this industry. It's taken me a few years to really feel sound about my purpose, but I feel at the board level, I was really brought in to help diversify our board a little bit from a gender perspective. I'm very passionate about this generational transition that's about to occur, and it's occurring as we're speaking. And I'm actually really excited about what AI is about to do and how I think it's going to shift a lot of just interest into skilled trades. And I think the future is going to be really exciting. So that motivates me.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. And kind of bouncing off of that motivation has there been anything that has surprised you when you got into the industry?
So my first real entry into the industry was going to climbing comps. And I was shocked that here the people they're competing against each other. And yet they're all sharing tips and tools. They're showing off, they're letting people borrow their gear, try out their gear. And they're cheering each other on, coaching each other on from the sidelines. And I was not expecting that. My previous career had been my interim career was legal. And, attorneys don't do that. They don't coach each other. They don't cheer each other on. And so that was a big surprise to me, and one of those things that I really liked seeing, especially seeing the men coaching the women and cheering for the women that really made my heart just grow 5 sizes bigger, or whatever it was that the Grinch.
I would say the biggest surprise for me in this industry is just how complex and purpose driven tree work is. It's not just a service, it's safety, environmental stewardship, it's skilled labor, and you might as well throw physics in there, all intersecting every single day. And I was really taken back by how deep the relationships are across the industry. I mean, you must have trust within, of course, your crews and your clients, but across the industry has really proven to be a very strong foundation for everything that we do. The treeple is a real thing. The energy that the love of trees brings is contagious, and I feel like the people that are here for pure passion, and you can feel that everywhere you go. So that was a big surprise to me versus corporate America, where the majority of people could essentially just be working to take home their check, and they're not as passionate. And here it's a vibe, and it's beautiful.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So now we're going to move on to adapting and adaptability, reinventing yourself. Amy, moving from a corporate to a business ownership and also becoming a TCIA board of director. That's a huge shift. What was that adjustment like?
Yes, I'm gonna answer this with like two different hats. I'm gonna answer it just as a business owner, and it was humbling. I joke around, if you want to test your sanity, you should come from a compliance role to owning a tree care company, because the first 3 years, like, I was used to people following rules. My calendar would go the way I thought it would on a Monday, and that is the complete opposite of how it is in the tree industry. So, it was a lot to sink in, and I really truthfully think it took me about 3 years to accept just the fluidness of our industry, and not that we don't follow rules, but another thing is just in corporate America, I was tasked, with influencing decisions. And when you own a business, you own it all. You own the wins, the losses, the consequences, and there is no safety net. Every hiring decision, every safety decision, every financial call impacts real people and families. And so that was a big adjustment. As far as the board, I feel is just a natural, it fills my corporate void. So, I think that I came from an executive setting, and I really appreciated being in them. And so the adjustment I had to make from a board level is I think it's very important when you own a business, you should work on your business, not in your business. But I do have an operator mindset. And so I really had to take steps back and look at the industry as a whole, take myself out of it, and what's best for the entire industry, including future generations. So really shifting from an operator to a steward mindset was critical to be successful. I think entrepreneurs want results, and you want them fast. And so when you're setting long-term strategic strategies, you can't expect those changes overnight, and they don't happen overnight. And so really making sure that I was intentional about the spaces I'm in, and not being an operator at the board level.
Amazing. Thank you so much for answering that. And moving on to Rebecca, you've navigated multiple roles over your career. Again, going back to wearing a lot of hats. How have you stayed adaptable and continued to grow through that change?
One of the things that I've always defined myself is that I'm very curious. I'm a curious person, and I like to learn new things. I've been really working on having that growth mindset ever since I read the book by Carol Dweck. And so for me, it's been all about finding the energy in satisfying curiosity, finding the curiosity. What about this is interesting and curious? So as an auditor, it works out really well because I get to go and meet tree care companies, and I can just be curious and ask questions and learn new things. I won't say that there a few years from now when I feel like I've learned a lot, I won't be starting to burn out. But what I have found in myself, and it's not true for everybody, but for myself, as long as there's something new to learn, I don't burn out as much. Um, I did have some issues with burnout for a while. When I got into the career, really fully transitioned into the career, I was working for a nonprofit, which I loved the work I was doing at the nonprofit. Um, but there was a leadership change, and I felt extremely unappreciated. And so what I found in my life is that unappreciation leads to burnout for me. Um, so that's when I started having burnout and had to go through therapy. And I recommend therapy for everybody. It's been eye-opening, learning different things. So that's part of how I've continued to stay adaptable, is finding those new things that are satisfying my curiosity. Plus, it's just fun. Amy pointed out that the tree care company is all about the environment and caring for the environment. So I remind myself a lot of the times that what I'm doing is creating an environment that I want to leave for my kids and grandkids, assuming I have grandkids. But just that idea that this is what I'm working on. And I've had really good support. I have a good network of support. Amy and I have known each other for years. We both had a great cheerleader in San Antonio with Booker Arredondo, who was always able to provide that extra support. And I really worked on building my deep network so that if I have a question or something that's challenging me, I know who I can go and get some advice from to help with that. And that's one of the things I like to pay forward, is introducing people to other people to help when they have a challenge. And I think I jumped a little ahead, but maybe not.
It was a great segue into one of our next questions. So Rebecca, earlier you had mentioned that one of the challenges you faced was leadership. So now my question is, that leadership looks different for everyone. How would you define leadership in your work, and how have you used your position to create that space for others?
So yeah, leadership does look different for everybody. And it took me a long time to embrace the leader hat. Um, I've I am a very collaborative person, so I don't like the idea of a leadership. I like to be collaborative. So for me, leadership is creating the environment that I would have liked to have had at any point in my career and my life, and then encouraging people, building other people up, deferring questions to people, bringing other people in, so that, and then cheerleading people. That's my leadership, is that leadership from us behind and to the side, nudging people where they need to be, encouraging people.
Alex, do you want me to answer the challenge question, or do you want me to
Absolutely.
finish? Okay.
Go for it.
As far as challenges that I've experienced, I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Rebecca said. I mean, I'm going to be vulnerable here, but in 2023, um, I experienced just, I don't know if responses to COVID, what, but initially some health issues where my brain was swelling up, and I really had to learn to lean on my team. I think it was a combination of just some random health issues, but stress was adding to it, and really having to take some steps back. And this kind of bleeds into another story. When I say my longtime mentor and direct report at that time gave me a themed go away party, and it was a Phoenix theme. And I feel like he gave me a compliment and a little feedback at the same time, where I had like the ability to build a room up or burn it down. And so just making sure that you manage your energy. And, we want 100% focus on safety, of course, but he did really highlight that people can pass at 75%, and I was giving 150% on everything I was doing. And if I wasn't really intentional about that, I was going to burn out. And so I think that happened in 23. I think I was still going 150% at everything I had to do. And so it was It was really humbling and also great to see how quick my team jumped in, how much trust that allowed. And so, while we went through that challenge, I had to step back for 2 months and the business was still operating. And so, while I went through that, I feel like it also allowed me to take my hands off things that I didn't need my hands on and let other people jump in and help. And it allows you to have a stronger team. So, my takeaway though is specifically for females, stress kills, and make sure you recognize, when you're tapped out or when you need to just take care of yourself a little bit more because it's very important. Also know when to ask for help.
Absolutely.
Do you want me to jump into the leadership? Because we kind of popped back and forth as far as what leadership looks like to me.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them.
And so, I think like through that challenge, I also have learned through a couple of TCIA conferences that like I'm a doer and a fixer. And so allowing others to do doing for them, I was actually hurting them, not helping them, and creating an environment just where they can fail. So to me, leadership is about being the loudest or the final word. It's about creating clarity, safety, and opportunities for others to succeed. And I'm really teaching myself to just slow down, ask better questions, be transparent, be authentic, and create a space where people can fail and they can learn from those mistakes and grow. And create an environment where people aren't scared to admit that they failed and they can talk about it and get better from there. And then as far as just females go, get, create your group, find your friends, lean on your people, whether it be personal, business. I think it's amazing. I woke up this morning and had several encouraging emails about thanking me for going to DC yesterday, and they were excited to hear the webinar today. And it's just, again, a beautiful industry to be a part of, but really find your people that'll support you and encourage you to do better, and then apply that in your own leadership approach as well.
Yeah, I agree that reaching out to people when you see them doing something really cool, making sure that it's called out. And I appreciate that you went to Washington, by the way. Um, I'm I'm really hopeful to have an OSHA and an industry specific OSHA standard.
Thank you. It was a fast and furious trip yesterday, but I had to pinch myself that I was sitting across the table from the head of OSHA, and he's listening and he understands what we're asking for, and they seem serious about trying to accommodate us. Fingers crossed.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing, and Amy, specifically around your vulnerable story. Speaking more on challenges, especially in such a male-dominated industry, can you share a time when you faced pushback, doubt, or a setback, and what helped you move forward?
I mean,
Becca?
I think it's a lot of women have this, oh, you show up on site, oh, you're the arborist. Or you're at a conference and you're participating in a conversation and somebody says, oh, wow, you know a lot for a girl, or, something like that. There's a lot of microaggressions that happen. But one big challenge I faced with the leadership change was realizing that there are women out there that can't support other women because they feel like your success brings them down. And I see that it's not just women, there's men too, but I expect better from women. So it was a really hard thing for me to accept that it's not always about you. It's about the person that's given you the issues. It's usually about the person that's given you the issues. And of course, I've had the uncomfortable situations where, I'm at a consultation and somebody's like asking me if I want to come in and have a drink or have a joint, and asking things like, have you ever had sex after having a joint? It's like, dude, I'm on your property by myself. This is really uncomfortable. And in that case, it's reaching out to friends and family and like finding out, yeah, this is not you. That wasn't acceptable. I had a situation at a conference that I was at a conference all by myself. Usually my spouse is with me, or at least I have friends, but this was a Society of American Forester conference, I knew maybe 5 people, which is really unusual for me. So I was trying to expand my network and getting to know people. So, I just started talking to this guy, he was at like an interesting booth and we just started talking. And later he's like, do you want to go get some drinks? And then maybe we can see where this goes. And I'm like, I'm just networking. I'm not trying to develop a relationship. And the number of men that tell me, well, he just shot a shot, it's fine. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. That makes it harder for me to feel like I can get to know new people. Because are they going to think that I'm trying to develop some kind of a relationship with them? And I am wanting to develop a relationship, but I want to develop a professional relationship, not a personal. So that one set me back pretty hard, honestly. I was afraid to really start talking to men at conferences unless my spouse was with me, because I wanted to make sure there wasn't a misunderstanding. And, in a male dominated field, the majority of the leaders are going to be men. And if you're holding yourself back from networking with them because you're afraid of what they might misinterpret, it makes it difficult to expand your network and build the better network. So that was a hard, being vulnerable like Amy, that was a really hard one for me. It set me back pretty hard. And I had to talk with my therapist about it, plus reach out to my network. And I was very happy to see all the people, the women that would say, and men, some men, not all men, but some men and women were like, no, that was totally unacceptable, and we need to do better at conferences and encouraging people to realize this is all about professional relationships, not personal. And you need to keep that in mind when you're meeting somebody new of the opposite sex.
I'm a little bit different in that experience. I came from a financial institution, which was also majority male dominated as well. So gender roles have kind of been a non-issue to me. I'm a big believer it's what you can bring to the table, not what your gender is. The only time I really experienced like some pushback was when I came into the industry with our own company. For me to restructure, put my name on it, and make it my own, I had to squash some things. And my husband was doing everything the best to his ability. But I mean, again, I came from compliance. So I came in establishing processes and procedures. We became accredited. Maybe people that weren't turning in JHAs or DVIRs on a daily basis had to. And it was an uncomfortable shift for school people that had been part of our team before I came on, and some of them weren't receptive to the changes I came in and made, and some of them didn't. And so at the end of the day, we pushed through, and every change we made has improved our company. It's made our team better and happier and easier to work with. But it was a little challenging to get there, and we had to have kind of a culture shift. At my board level, I think I probably the males treat me like a queen. They're so respectful. They support me. I think I might scare them more than they scare me at times. And so I'll go back to the energy of the Phoenix energy. I've really had to challenge myself at the board level to make sure like I'm passionate. This industry's passionate and my passion is pure, but sometimes that energy is intense. And so really challenging my EQ, separating those emotions from facts. You can't make emotional decisions. And so really being intentional about that is what I'm working on at the board table, because sometimes they're just like, wow, and so it's been neat to see them go through the transition of the energy I'm bringing to the table, but I'm also hoping that they're seeing that I'm trying to grow up a little bit and make sure I'm being respectful. And I'm also learning that the quieter people at the table are the smartest people at the table, and making sure that everybody has a chance to speak up and lead is important. As you evolve in leadership and you get higher in leadership, it's less about you and more about passing that torch on to the next generation and the next set of leaders. And so that's where I'm at now. And I'm hoping that I can help support the people that'll take on these roles after I'm finished.
Thank you both so much for sharing those stories. I'm sure it will help someone realize that they're not alone in some of these experiences. So kind of keeping on track to our past, Looking back, what's one lesson or turning point that shaped how you lead today?
Go first.
I mean, I think I've really already answered that. Turning point was me tapping out for 3 months and then watching my team grow and support me and become more in sound positions, and really having to admit to myself like I was hindering their ability to grow more because I'm a doer and a fixer, and I need to be stepping out on my business and making sure that I'm trusting my team because I've got great people, all the right people in the right seats. And it, it was a challenge because I was sick and I had to step out, but it was beautiful at the end to see how my team showed up, and it also showed me to get out of their way.
I don't have any one particular point that changed. I've been growing and evolving over the last 5 to 10 years. I think that there was a conversation I had with somebody that I respect greatly about feeling like, taking on that leadership role and just identifying as a leader, and how difficult that was for me, even though, I mean, at that point I was on the ISA Texas board, had been on the board for a while, had been in the executive committee for a while. And at that point, I think I was incoming president, and just talking about, I'm just one of a group of people. I'm not really a leader, and having that comment and conversation about, you can be a leader even if you're not like the top of, leadership can be more flat than hierarchical. And that was a big mind shift for me, I guess I want to say, realizing that leaders don't have to be bossy and it's not a negative thing. Yeah, that conversation helped me internalize the idea of being a leader. It still sometimes feels a little like, why are you looking at me as a leader? I'm just little old me. I'm just making it all up as I go along. I don't understand what you. But I think also realizing I can be vulnerable and say, I'm making it up as I go along is a leadership moment. I'm not trying to pretend I have it all figured out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that. So now I'm going to move on to building community. So both of you are strong advocates for supporting women in the industry. And this can be an umbrella for all communities within the industry. Does an inclusive tree care culture look like to you?
To me, an inclusive culture is just where respect is built into the systems. It's not just stated in your values. We've had a lot of success in our own company by hiring people that have no industry knowledge, giving them time, 2 or 3 years from the ground up to learn. We've got trainers and peer-to-peer going on. And so I feel like allowing those safe spaces to come in, learn the right way, has made our culture and our community at work stronger, because people don't feel pressured to come in and have to get it right day one. We also don't have people coming in with bad OG habits that they're not willing to break. And so that's been really beautiful to see our community as our business is growing and the culture gets stronger. And I really think it's the approach of allowing that 2 to 3 year workforce development timeframe where people can grow in their skill set and be confident in what they're doing.
Sorry for that interruption. My dog is being whining. So for me, I read a book called The Whalebone Theater, and that's neither here nor there, but there was this one passage in there that really spoke to me. The main protagonist commented, she didn't mind being a woman. She just wanted it not to matter that she was a woman. She wanted it not to be part of what the first thing that people saw about her. They wanted people to see her as a whole person. And for me, that's what an inclusive industry is going to look like, where you come in as a whole person. You're not a female arborist, you're just an arborist. You're not a female climber, you're just a climber. And, the same goes for, you're not a trans climber, you're just a climber, or you're not a Black climber, you're just a climber. That idea that something that identifies an outside portion of you isn't defining you. And that's what I'm working on figuring out. And a lot of what I see looking at other industries, the way that tends to happen is to have more people of those minorities involved, which is why I've been such an advocate in getting more women, because, that's my demographic, getting more women involved. I'm always happy to support other demographics, but I also am cognizant of the fact that I don't want to be that white knight coming in for another demographic that I don't fit in, because that can come across poorly. For me, that's what it looks like. It looks like you're just an arborist. You're not a female. You're not whatever and that's where I'm at.
Thank you. And kind of piggybacking off of that, when you think about the next generation of women or other communities entering tree care, what gives you the most hope?
What gives me the most hope is, or maybe previous generations have seen barriers those go away, and females expect to belong. There's a role for everyone. And I think when you come into a male dominated industry, you're kind of trying to figure out if you fit here or you don't. And right now I think we're showing like we're at the table and there are no questions being asked about it. And so I want to see that continue to multiply. I want to continue to see that natural fit for any gender at the table. If you're qualified and you're willing to serve or work in this industry, show up, put in the work, and lead the way. So I'm really, I'd love to see continued progress in mentorships, flexible career pathways, visible female leadership at every level. But I've been in leadership roles for 5 or 6 years now, and it's really been neat to see what's just happened in the last 5 or 6 years. Do you not agree, Rebecca? I mean, it's happening every single day. So we're making tons of progress, and we just need to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, and so what's given me the most hope is I know it gets a lot of bad press, but I'm enjoying the fact that people are more in touch with their feelings, and we're being more aware of mental health and the language around what bullying looks like. And I'm seeing people willing to call it out when it's happening. Because, 5-6 years ago, women were dropping out of the industry because it was just the men were rude and crude, which they are, and it wasn't that the women were weak. It just that wasn't a working environment that they wanted to be a part of. And I'm seeing men realize that, yeah, we're being rude and crude, and maybe we should back that off a little bit. And what I'm seeing in that too is that I'm seeing better satisfaction in the men as well when that stops happening, that they feel they're happier, they're safer, they're working safer. If they're not worried about somebody making fun of them because they ask for help lifting a log, they don't get injured as much. So it's making for a better industry. So that's what's given me a lot of hope. And I'm also seeing this, this generation of women. Plus, I'm seeing a lot of perimenopausal and menopausal women who have decided that they don't care what other people think. And so they're reaching into the field and coming in. And we have things like the Women's Tree Climbing Workshop that brings in women and that have never had any climbing experience. And they provide the gear for them to try out and see what fits best and bring them from, never been into a tree into. I've seen a weekend where a woman had never been in a tree, and by the end of the weekend, she's limb walking, which made me jealous because I'm not doing that. But I'm just seeing that, and I'm seeing, a lot of the gear is more accessible and making tree care more accessible for women. A lot of these senders and stuff, and they're making it better for men as well. If you're not humping your way up a tree by body thrusting, you have a lot more energy once you're in the field and in the tree, and you work safer. But it is making things easier for women, and I do see, especially in the US, a more outdoor mindset. So we see women doing, rock climbing and hiking and stuff. And so that's a great pull to bring them into trees. It's like, oh, you like to rock climb? Already know a lot of the different things that you would need to be a tree climber. Have you thought about being a tree climber? That's been a lot of fun to see women that tell me, oh yeah, I got into tree care because I was rock climbing, and one of my rock climbing buddies was a tree climber. And he says, hey, why don't you come work with us and see what happens? So that's been fun.
Thank you both so much for sharing. Before we get into the Q&A portion of our webinar, are there any last thoughts from you, Amy or Rebecca, that you would like to share with our attendees?
I mean, I will just say, I'm kind of just saying what Rebecca just said. I have it written down. I want to see the next generation to inherit an industry where excellence, not gender, defines opportunity. And we're getting there as we, focus on safety, and we focus on science, and we focus on all the right things we're doing, and we learn and we're confident. Like, continue just to dig in, do everything the right way, give yourself, a chance to make mistakes and learn from them. But I think as long as you're qualified and you're confident and you're able to do the job, I hope that that's what our future holds. It doesn't pertain to gender. It's that you know what you're doing, and you've got opportunities in front of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we do have one question in the comments from Lydia. She says, do you have any ideas on how we can recruit more women in the industry?
Oh, that's a good one. I really don't. I hope Rebecca does. Rebecca hosts a once a month Tuesday night, webinar, a little Zoom meeting, and gets all sorts of people on there. But I mean, right now we have 3 females out of 25 at our company, and I'd like to see more, but I have more males applying for jobs, and so I don't know how we do that, but I do think that this shift that AI is about to bring, where it takes away a lot of jobs in the skilled trade, like my son doesn't want to go to college. My daughter's been climbing trees since she was 4. I think you're going to see more and more people. The next generation is very environmentally conscious. My kids are literally like counting my carbon footprint at home. They're unplugging their lights and night lights. It's almost becoming much, but the next generation really wants to be involved and around the environment and nature. And so I hope to see a natural progression of that, bringing all types of people in. But I haven't figured out the art to just increasing the gender to more females overnight. Rebecca, hopefully you have something better to add than myself.
It's a hard question because so I'm hopeful that with the Girl Scouts having a tree climbing badge, but it's not just it's a something else badge too, so they don't have to necessarily tree climb. But I'm hopeful that as women, little girls see women in the field. It's one of, Amy mentioned my webinar, my Zoom meeting that we do. One of the ways I promote that is I have a changing the face graphic that is a woman doing some aspect of tree care. So that's, for me, it's all about, if you don't see it, you can't be it. You don't know that you can do it. But also, if employers don't see it, they don't know that that's possible. So it's about making sure that women are visible. When I was editing the ISA Texas magazine, I told the events, it's like, if you need to, don't just send me a big pile of pictures, pick out the best pictures. I said, because if you don't pick out the best ones that you like, I'm going to go through and pick out the ones that have more women in them, so that women are being seen in tree care. And that's one of the reasons I think Amy and I both have been trying to be more visible as women in tree care, showing the different things that we can do in tree care. And I think that helps a lot. I actually finally transitioned from my legal field into the tree care because I went to a Women in arboriculture breakfast at ISA and heard Melissa Levangie speak. And she had this great story, and it really encouraged me to realize, oh, I could do this too. I don't have to play it safe in my legal job that is safe. It's easy and safe, and I don't have to think hard. I don't have to do anything special. But hearing her talk, so getting out and sharing our stories and hoping other women share their stories is what's going to make it help.
I do have one more thing to add. I do like we haven't obviously had a clear answer on the immediate solution to that question, but I will say like we work with our community. We plant parks. We've planted like 200 trees in Bernie during Arbor Day, and we're bringing out the pre-K kids, all of them, and it's amazing when they watch you. They're looking at you climb, and they're looking at you plant trees, and they all get to participate, and they're excited about it. So as far as the long-term play, like really just expose history to the young generation so they can get excited about it, and it starts at a very young age of pre-K kids planting trees on Arbor Day and even knowing that these jobs and career exist for them.
I going back to like recruiting women, I think if you can find a rock climbing gym or rock climbing community, that's a great place to go and reach out to women that are already interested in that kind of physical. If that exists in your area. Also, just if you have a tree planting nonprofit, showing up, attending the planting events, and talking to the women you see there, asking, have you ever considered working in tree care? So that they, if nothing else, you're dropping it into their head that, oh, that's a potential career that I could actually do. I think it'll help if we're seen more as a skilled industry, a skilled trade, rather than kind of the cowboy trade that we are. And Katie dropped into the chat that going to career fairs at VOAG schools has worked well. I got into this through FFA, and I do think FFA is a great entry point for a lot of women.
And Rebecca, we've got a question from Kayla asking if you can provide more information about your monthly webinars.
Yes, I can. I didn't even have the link ready. Let me find the link. I'll post the link in the chat. But did you want to move on to Charlene's while I'm looking it up?
Yeah, sure. And also, Rebecca, I can include the link to
awesome.
In our follow-up email. So Charlene asks, how would you handle pushback when people see us having female-only events as excluding others like men as a negative thing?
That is a great question. When I first joined ISA Texas board, I came to the board and I said, hey, one of the things I really want to do is I want to bring the women's tree climbing workshop to Texas. This is really important to me. And one of the guys said, well, that's sexist. And it's like, okay, I hear why you're saying what you're saying, but you need to understand. And for me, I just pointed out some of the things that women hear. I pointed out, that women hear, wow, your butt looks really good in those pants, or that harness fits you really well and shows off your figure. And pointing out that I said, how would you feel if a man was saying that to you as a man? Not like, how would you feel if one was saying it to you? Because I know how you feel, but as a man, if a man said that to you, how would that make you feel? Would you feel comfortable and safe in that environment? But I think there's also remembering that, being careful to remember things that like what we can have men at, not excluding men just because we want a safe space, but like determining does this need to be a safe space, or can this be a male inclusive space? And being intentional about that, I think, can help quite a bit. Amy?
I mean, I feel like I'll piggyback on what you say. I think we need to be careful about excluding men. I think there's things where like women in tree care workshop is a wonderful example of having a small group of females together that can learn how to climb and do it correctly and not feel intimidated. But at the end of the day, if the guys got together and had a male only exclude to, I would probably question it. So I feel like a few years ago we had at Expo, we had a little bit of a lesson where there was some heated conversations going on. And I think at the end of the day, the males were curious. They were actually there because they wanted to learn. They were asking questions and getting a little bit of harsh responses. Rebecca, I think you were there, but once I really reflected on the entire experience, I believe that their intentions were pure and they are there to say, like, how can I work better with you? What can I do to support this? And so, us all just being open minded that we're, again, like, we need to strive for excellence and try to overcome the gender differences because we're all here and we're all going to be stronger together. But there are settings that I think are appropriate where females can have more intimate discussions of what they're experiencing with their challenges, where they go to the restroom during the day, what, clothes to fit them, like all that good stuff. And the guys aren't going to have the answers for it. And so right now, Rebecca, your monthly meeting is a great setting for that, right? And
Right.
you invite everyone to that, but it is focused more on the female discussions.
I don't admit, so people who identify as male are not
Okay,
invited.
okay,
It's,
okay.
we do have underrepresented genders invited. So if you're trans, you're invited, because that's another, there
Mhm.
would be some similar stuff happening there. But yeah, that's, and that's so that it's open for, like, how do I deal with being on my period? Or how do I deal with, having a baby and I'm breastfeeding, so I'm having to pump, and my truck now has driver facing cameras. Where do I go to
Mhm.
pump that I'm going to have privacy, that isn't going to trigger the cameras to say that that's a violation, that you blocked the camera or whatever? And the bathrooms are a big one. And that kind of leads into the next question, I think, right, Alex?
Yeah, I do believe so. And again, everyone, I can drop the link to Rebecca's webinar in our follow-up email. So we do have time for one more question. This is from Rebecca. She says, what specifically can be done to promote more equity on the job? Um, Amy, can you speak a little more specifically to your experience changing the culture in your company?
I'll take the culture question, and that really I have to give TCIA accreditation all of the credit on that. So once I kind of found myself in the company and the direction we were going to go, we got accredited. And again, that requires, documented safety trainings and briefings and JHAs and DVIRs and I'm learning as I'm reflecting that when we first started this company, we did have more old school employees, more old school mentalities. And once we shifted and those rules were non-negotiable and we were going to follow processes and procedures. And I mean, I blamed a lot of it on USAA. I'm like, sorry, this is corporate America bleeding into the tree care company. So I was able to use that as an excuse for a little bit. But overall, the accreditation process does not increase our revenue. It changed our entire culture to make sure that we were complying with safety standards and training and striving for excellence at our company. And the people that didn't want to play by those rules didn't last. So it was, my husband was, I think, questioning the process a little bit, but looking back, like, it was amazing and it was the best thing for our company. But we lost probably half of the staff at that time and then added on the people that were the right fits moving forward.
Yeah, I've heard lots of good talks about that idea that, the people that got you here aren't going to be the people that get you to the next step. And it's hard to have people lost. A lot of tree care companies don't know what they don't know. And that's what I found with accreditation, is that there's a lot of federal guidelines that some tree care companies don't understand, that they don't know that that's a requirement. And so accreditation helps them find those requirements. But promoting more equity is, one of the things is calling out when you hear the sexist language, calling out when you hear somebody on the job make fun of somebody else for being weak because they ask for help or whatever. And that requires leadership to call out, whether it's actual, like, leadership, like paid leadership, or if it's just that the person that people look to as a leader, there's often a very popular person that everybody follows, making sure that that person is calling out that stuff, that people listen to him. And it could be that you have to get rid of some people, which is sad. And it's never easy. And give them a coaching. And most of the time, people self-select out once you start coaching. If they aren't going to be able to follow, they will quit rather than you having to let them go, which is
I
nice.
have I do have one more thing to add to culture, and that is I'm noticing a huge shift. Like I think this industry is way behind on retirement matching. And when I do my research, so one of my big goals this year was to offer a 401k at 4%. And we did that. And everyone's participating. But I'm noticing that we're having higher quality team members, and the higher quality people I have are actually like participating in all the benefits we're offering. So back in the day, I think the first year I offered benefits, no one signed up because they were just looking at that paycheck number to come home. And now we have vision, dental, health, life insurance, and it's eye-opening to see all the participation and the value that they see in those benefits. And then it was just really beautiful to see these people are working so hard, and I'm committed on a meaningful career path for everyone in this industry. And you can't work this hard and not have some retirement to fall back on. And so the more benefits we offer as a company, the higher quality becomes and the better our company is. So
That's a good
that also
point.
helps your culture.
It's a very good point.
All right, thank you both so much. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. We've had a really great discussion today, and I'm excited for everyone to share their stories in our survey after the webinar closes. So once again, just a huge thank you to Rebecca and Amy for sharing their time, their expertise, their stories, and their continued support of the tree care industry. If you have any additional questions or you want to learn more about TCIA Business Solutions, please reach out to us at businesssolutions@tcia.org. We do hope that you'll join us for our next webinar, TCIA Loss Control Annual Industry Report on January 22nd. Registration is now open. I'm posting the link in the chat for you to click on. And thank you again for joining us today. We hope to see you at a future TCIA webinar, and happy holidays, everyone.
Yes, thank you all for being here. Happy holidays.
I was just about to type the same thing. We really appreciate everybody that was here. Obviously, I could speak into a blank camera by myself, but it's much more enjoyable if I know somebody's watching. So appreciate everybody's time and interest, and I hope that everybody does respond to those surveys and enjoy your holidays. And now is the time to start closing out this past year and looking forward to next year.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.